Nick, thanks for joining.
Thanks so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Good to have you. So we were just talking about your experience as an artist in LA before we started recording, and I think you're the first LA artist that's been on the podcast, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow, that's crazy and so cool.
So it'll be fun to talk to you about in your perception of New York versus LA and what it's like out there. And you were just saying that it seemed like there was a lot of momentum just a few years ago, but then recently a lot of galleries have been closing. What's the feel out there right now?
I mean, it's really interesting because, yeah, I feel like in the last few years, like a spotlight kind of got put on LA all of a sudden, and like everybody was trying to move here. Like tons of New York galleries came out here and opened like, second spaces or, maybe like their 10th space or whatever. And it was just like, you talk to people in Europe and they're like, LA is the new place. Everybody's moving here. It's getting really expensive. And it kind of felt exciting and a little bit like, oh, we're losing this kind of like, you know, unseen thing that we have going on too. But that's all, it feels like completely like it's fallen out. So it's like really interesting right now because like, all these galleries have closed and it's just like, who's left? Like what's left? Like the artists are left. And I don't know, it's almost feels like it's kind of gone back to where it was in a way, like before we got all this attention.
So it sounds like
Uh,
it's good and bad.
Good. Yeah, I mean, I think we're just waiting to see like how it's gonna play out. But I felt like that with everybody moving here and stuff too. I was like, wow, like LA has really got a spotlight on it now. That's good and bad. Because for a long time it was like cheap to be here. You didn't have to think so much about, you know, maybe like when you're in LA, you're not thinking so much about your career. You're just kind of like focused in the studio. And then, um, it's really like an artist city. And then with all the galleries moving in, I feel like a lot of attention got put on like all these galleries and like, just really becoming a place where the market is suddenly. And now it's going back.
I remember when Zwerner moved out there. That was kind of a big deal, right? Zwerner and Pace, I think,
Yeah.
right?
Pace is out here. Yeah. They're still doing great. I mean, Warner, I think, is here to stay. They can afford it and putting on like great shows. They just had a great Luke Timon show. I saw the other half when I was at Zorner in New York in the fall. And so it was like interesting to see both shows in both places, like different work, but really similar.
So do people curate shows differently for LA versus New York in your perception?
Oh, um, I'm sure they do. I don't know if I've like necessarily noticed that. Um, Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that one. I'm not in New York often enough. I wish I was more often, but I used to go like once a year. And since the pandemic, it's been like pretty sparse. I was there twice last fall and it was brief. I had like two shows in New York
Oh, nice.
and I just hit like museums and a few choice places and I was like trying not to kill myself. So I didn't see as much as I wanted to. But other than that, I haven't been a whole lot. I was like there once in 2023.
So what
But
brought you to LA initially?
I grew up in Michigan and you're from Indiana, right?
Yes, yeah, a fellow Midwesterner.
Yeah, exactly. I'm from a really rural community in Michigan. Like no stoplights, no franchise, anything. It's like a farming community. And I think I was kind of like born an artist and, like that's just like my natural path, but there wasn't really like any sense of like what an artist was where I was from. So I got really into music and that was like a little bit more acceptable and kind of like there was like an avenue for that where I was from and I was like playing music in like metal bands and like really serious about it and stuff all through high school and like playing shows in Detroit and stuff. And then I went to college at Michigan State University. I was going to study audio production and I absolutely hated it. I wanted to drop out and I ended up just switching my major to studio art, kind of like out of my mom like begging me to stay in school and just get my degree before I like always wanted to move to California, I think. And I was like, I'm just gonna drop out and move to California. And my mom was like, just get your degree and then you can like do what you need to do. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna switch to studio art. And like that was like literally the first art class I had like ever taken. Like I didn't have art in high school or anything. And it was like the lights came on for me. It was like this immediately, it was like, this is it. So I just got obsessed through college. And then while I was still studying at Michigan State, I got hired to work at a gallery it was in Santa Monica. So like West Los Angeles. And I moved out here when I was 23. And I've been here pretty much ever since. I went back to Detroit and had a studio for like a few months like in 2011, but I've been
How did the gallery find you, or how did you find the gallery?
I was searching I was like just researching artists that I was like interested in online. And do you know the artist Ida Applebrug?
Yeah, do.
I was really into her work at the time, and she was showing with this gallery. On the gallery's website, I was like, wow, this gallery's showing some like really great work, and really great artists. And I saw on their website they were like hiring. And this is like 2005.
What was the gallery?
Uh, it's called Low Gallery. They shut down in LA in
Mm.
2008, like with the financial crisis.
Yeah.
So they're based out of Atlanta though, and I think they're still going, maybe under a different name. But LA was kind of like their satellite space. So anyway, I applied for the job and ended up flying out to LA and like interviewing, got hired while I was still in school at Michigan State, and moved out like before I even like went like I skipped graduation to move out here and start working.
So as soon
And
as you graduated, you moved to LA.
yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody. I just came out here. I had zero network. I like just was making artwork in my living room and my it was like I kind of had like a closet that I slept in and I used my bedroom as the studio for a while. Like
Yeah, the same thing.
um,
But you had your foot in the
and then,
you had your foot in the door, right?
yeah, totally.
Working for that gallery who was like pretty well known in the art world, and they showed serious artists.
Yeah, and it was really interesting too, just to like see that side of it as like a young person and see sort of like how they maybe didn't pay all their artists and like like how things kind of worked a little bit
The
to see like
reality.
the reality of it. That really
Yeah.
bothered me. And it wasn't like a very good fit for me. So I think I worked there for like 6 months, and then I managed to get a job doing working with like a landscape architecture firm doing like drawings for them, and sort of worked part-time with landscape architects and architects to like sort of support my like studio rent and stuff up until like 2019 or 2018 when I was like just showing more and getting more opportunities and stuff.
So you were able basically to segue these gigs
Yeah.
into basically just showing your work and having a career as an artist.
I mean, like the like working for the architects, I kind of considered it just a job. It could have been like anything, and I kind of tried to keep it really separate. Um, it's funny because since uh, the art market has kind of took like a downturn, I've gotten back into it and I've like completely embraced it as like part of my practice, which is really cool. So I'm working with like one architect and one landscape architect, and I'm using like my paint textures to like kind of like reinvent their aesthetic for the whole firm, and like their presentations on like their plan drawings and their perspectives and stuff when they present to clients. And it's really cool. I'm just kind of like, I'm like, if I can't be the art, like the full on artist that like I want to be, I'm just going to be an artist like in everything that I have to do. Or
I love to hear that. I want to demystify. I think a lot of people think that to be an artist, a serious artist, you have to sell your work and be full time. What does that even mean? I think that
yeah,
now I know very few artists that are just surviving on their work alone. I mean, I know some that do, but for the most part, everybody's kind of figuring it out. You find some hustle, and I think we
yeah,
have this sort of false impression that to be a serious artist, you have to have these galleries and they're selling your work and you're the big star and all this stuff. And it's
yeah.
just
No,
so
that's what 100%, right? Yeah,
yeah, it's absurd. I'm not saying, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people at that level are doing well and they're happy and so forth, but you always sort of make new problems and
yeah,
whatever it is, I think you have to just be happy. And like you're doing with every aspect in your work, you're taking this creative approach to it. You're not saying, here's my painting that's more important,
yeah.
then I've got this other work I'm doing for these firms that's less important. But if you incorporate the same spirit into it, you've won, right?
No, I absolutely. That's the way I've kind of reframed it for myself. Is like, it's equally important. Everything, like, it's like being very zen about it. And when you have the opportunity to put together like an exhibition, like put everything into that. But when you have the opportunity to like do another project, like be as creative as you can. And yeah, I mean, going back to what you're saying, like about that, I have a friend who's like he's doing pretty well as a music producer, and he kind of got to it through like new music and like the indie rock world from like a long time ago, but he's working with like big time pop stars now. And I was having dinner with him recently, and he was talking about just like collaboration and how the artists he works with, he's like sometimes like people come in and they have this thing where like they don't want any input, and they like they're the ones who have to make the masterpiece, you know. He's like, and it's like it's never as good as the people who come in and are like open, and we're kind of working together, and we're like in the room together, and we're like bringing it like wherever the idea comes from, and like whatever idea is like best, you know, like ends up being part of the product, and like just being completely open to that, and like collaboration. I've been like thinking about that, like this is inspiring to me as like somebody who sits in my studio alone, and like how do you bring in more collaboration? I think that's how you do it. Like you stay open to like other projects, and when people come in the studio, you like listen to what they have to say. You know, not everybody, but like, you know, I think
Yeah.
everybody can have a good idea, and like just being open to like input, and having more people through. And you know, it's not about like working on a piece with somebody like the same time necessarily, like where you might think of it that way, but like just having a community that's like um you know, working through that. And like when I go into the design studios, I'm like talking about my work with them and stuff. And like it's really interesting. And it brings me into a different part of town where I'm like, I go see like galleries on the west side of LA where like I'm usually just kind of stuck in my bubble of like, you know, the shows I see and, you know, the people I kind of rub shoulders with. And it's like, it's really cool. I don't know. It's like just being more open to what's happening. And also, part of it for me is like I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. So it's just like I can't ride the instability of the art world anymore, you know? It's like it's just like irresponsible.
Were you just in the studio full time for a while?
I think from like maybe like 2018, 2019 through 2023.
It is healthy though to get out of your bubble. And I think
Yeah.
this kind of work or other kinds of work can do that. And it sounds like you are able to maybe learn some things from this other work you're doing and then or just where it takes you and then bring that back into the studio, which sounds really healthy.
It's absolutely related. I mean, like my work, I think a lot about how things are like how the human world is built, how we like navigate that, how things are like structured over time and like built over top of each other and like built in relationship to each other. It's totally related to like architecture and landscape architecture and yeah, like just like responding to a place and a site and you know creating an environment. I think like are all things that I'm like very attuned to in my work.
I definitely see that. And I when I look at your work, I really it takes me to LA. You know,
Really? Yeah.
yeah, they're fun, they're colorful, and there is, as you've just described, this kind of architecture and there's a landscape quality. And I think it really does sort of embody from my outsider external point of view, this kind of spirit of LA. And I wonder how you think about that.
Yeah, it's like I think it's a little hard to like step outside of your own brain and like see how other people are experiencing it. But I think one way I think about that is like I do a lot of I always use like an undercoat on my work, on the ceramic work and the paintings where like I'll start with like a color. And for me it has to do with sort of like the energy or like the emotional feeling I have from the place. And for me, like I strongly associate some like colors with places and especially LA. And I think like, you know, coming here from anywhere else, like, you know, everywhere has its own like energy. And LA has a real strong energy. And like, if you come here from the Midwest, it's like a completely different feel and, or the East Coast or anything. I did a residency in 2019 up in Idaho, where I was up in the mountains basically for 2 months. And I came back to LA and like I was just kind of in isolation in a way. And I came back to LA at the end of August and it was like 105 degrees. Like I was in like on Sunset Boulevard. I used to have a studio in Silver Lake. I was like my house and my studio, and I kind of used the whole thing as a studio. And I came back and like LA was just alive. Like everybody was out in the street. It was like hot, like bodies everywhere. It was like it just felt like everything was like mixed. And I just felt like it was like an overwhelming color. I just got back from the mountains in Idaho and it was like orange, magenta, kind of like beaming out of everything. I could just like really see it. And I think like for me, it's like leaving and coming back. I really see it more clearly, but like that's kind of how I start and that's kind of how I relate it to place. And like it's like a feeling of a place. And I think that that's kind of maybe what you're alluding to a little bit with like the way I think like it's just happening naturally for me where like I want I want to like channel that feeling I get in the place.
I
Um,
feel it. I certainly feel it. Perhaps also coming from the Midwest, you have a different kind of perspective as opposed to if you grew up in LA, you might see it a little differently. It's like refreshing visually.
yeah, maybe it's like not taking it for granted or something. I think like I was doing really similar work when I was in Michigan and also using like color like underpaintings and kind of like letting that bleed through the work and stuff and creating like a vibe. And I just got so struck by it, like coming to LA for the first couple times was like it just everything was so fresh, different. There's like the perspective you have and the density and the way you kind of move through the city and the way people live here, it's like very private, I think. And it's different than New York for sure. Where like people like to kind of like put a barricade up front, like you have your front yard and it's like blocked to the public. And I'm really interested in trying to see in these spaces in a way, like in almost like a voyeuristic way. And I think that's like really, like these like little alleyways and stuff and the way you kind of like look through the fence. And that's the way we kind of experience things in general, I think. And like I kind of like to tune into that. And like LA is just like a really fertile place for that. And it's like there's weird stairways going through the hills and like people's backyards and stuff. And you can really get yourself into some situations that become like sort of like confusing visually and also just really stimulating. And then I think like, Michigan's flat. The addition of like hills and just like the light out here is like totally different too. And I really respond to that. Like light and shadow like plays a huge part in my work.
So I wonder if there's a quality of discovery. There are these hidden places, these little things you can explore both on a visual level in LA itself, but also in your work.
Yeah, I think so. It's like yes and no. I feel like also since I've had a kid, I'm home more, and my studio is in my backyard, and it's like I kind of use the whole backyard as a studio, which is really cool. But like I used to have time to go out and just do like a long walk every day, and it wasn't just to go out and like kind of like call imagery so much as just to like clear my head and like it was like a mental health thing in a way. And I don't have that so much more. I don't have like that luxury so much anymore. So it's like, but I'm just responding more to like my immediate environment. So it's like I'm painting more like interiors inside my house and like, just things like really like in my, I like my work is all based off of photography. I it's a huge part of my practice. And I think like the work I feel like I'm kind of going off on a tangent right now,
No, I
but
was actually that's perfect. I was going to
okay.
ask you about your process, in fact.
Okay. Well, so like I've been thinking about this a lot lately because I don't like to work plein air and I've done it and it's like really helpful and it helps you. I think it's like as a painter, it's like really interesting to do that and have that experience and kind of like it's amazing to like look at something as it changes in real time and try to like bring it onto, a piece of paper or canvas or something. It's like a whole thing. And I'm not super interested in that as like a regular practice, but I've always worked from photograph. And I think like for me, like I was kind of thinking about this recently. I have this really early memory of my parent, I must have been like 5 or 6. My parents got me like an old metal camera. And I was like just learning how to use it. It was like a wind up camera. We have to develop the film. Sorry, there's a helicopter. So I had this camera and I remember like we were on a road trip, maybe going to like northern Michigan or something. And I was like taking photos out the car window of like, things I thought were awesome. And like this red sports car drove by. And it was like so overwhelming to me. Like it was so beautiful and so, cool. And this, it was like just gleaming in the light. And I took a photo of it and then like got the photo developed. And I was so excited after like out the car window. And it was just like nothing. It was so, it lacked any kind of energy. And I think like it's kind of a deep thing that I've like realized recently where like that's kind of something I'm trying to do with the painting and maybe the core of like part of what I'm trying to do with the painting is like kind of like reconstruct that gap between the image and the experience. And like for me, like sometimes you get photographs that are like perfect and they're full of energy and they're not worth, you know, turning into a painting. But I mean, uh, it's really about like I take a ton of photography and it's I have like an inventory that I go through and look at it over and over again. And like sometimes like something just jumps out at me. And it's like a composition where I can like see where I would like enter it as a painting. And usually I'll start there and kind of leave it. Like I'm not referencing the photograph very often. And it becomes like about working through the studio and kind of like pushing the image, um, kind of like deconstructing the image. Like how far can you take it where it starts before it starts to like fall apart and then you like bring it back. And like I often do this over and over again where I'll have a painting started and then I'll put like washes of color over it and go back over top of it and kind of like create these like layers. And yeah, that's kind of how part of how the process works. I'm doing a lot more ceramics now and I'm bringing the same imagery. So I'm taking the imagery from the paintings and bringing it onto the ceramics and then things happen in the kiln that you can't predict and they become really interesting. So that sometimes like I'll take something that happens on the ceramic and I'll bring it into the painting now. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm kind of referencing both and it's becoming this really interesting like, you know, cycle.
So it all kind of feeds into itself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Photographs, the paintings and ceramics, and then there's an open system in a way.
An open system for sure. Yeah. It's like I don't know where it starts and ends, but it's like yeah, it's a circle, you know.
Everything in your life is too, right? You go out and you're working on landscape architecture, and that's has a part, where you live is a factor. Being inside more
Yeah.
makes it more interior. Like I think everything is truly connected. You can really see it in the studio.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll like shift a little bit so you can see. I've got like an interior painting over here on this one.
Yeah, so we're looking at your studio now, and it's huge. You said it was a garage that you converted into I mean, it's
Yeah,
awesome.
I don't know if it's huge. I mean, maybe it looks that way in Zoom, but it's like a two-car garage and then another like 200 square feet of like outdoor space that I've like slowly walled off and it's like becoming all one space, which is really
Well,
cool.
by New York standards, it's
Yeah.
it's pretty big. I
Yeah.
don't know if you read that. Did you read that Josh Klein article, or do you know about it?
I know about it and I haven't quite finished it yet, but yeah,
Yeah,
that was like a little depressing.
it was a little depressing, and it wasn't anything we didn't know.
Yeah,
I think it's good to see it spelled out like that. Basically, all the facts are laid out. Like, yeah, this is the problem. This is what's happening. And I think maybe there could be a part two of that article talking about the reasons why that's dangerous and why it's bad as a culture. Because I worry about this kind of cultural stagnation, and the role of artists is it's more important than we realize. I think
absolutely. I mean, I think like it's interesting because I think that, you know, you think about that with New York and the cost of living and the cost of like studio space. And I think San Francisco has really suffered from that too. Maybe LA is like sprawling enough so that like, I mean, it's one thing I love about LA is like it's so massive and it's so sprawling. You can like, it feels like you can always find some little new like nook or space or something. You might just have to go a little further east or north or into the valley or something. But it's like, it's cool, but I think San Francisco, like from what I know, it's like a lot of empty space, a lot of empty like commercial space, and the artists have left, you know, or a lot of them, because it used to be such a vibrant community and such a cool place. It's beautiful. Like I'm sure it'll bounce back, or
I hope it does.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lovely. I was born in Berkeley, and I went out
Oh,
a couple years ago for my 40th birthday. I went back out for the first time since I was a
how
kid,
cool.
and I'm just like, this place is beautiful. It's amazing. Like
Oh,
there's flowers
beautiful.
everywhere.
Yeah, it's like a European city. It's like it's amazing.
It's just lovely.
I love going up there. Yeah, any chance I get, I go up. But from what I hear, also just from other artists, it's like just and like I was working with a gallery for a little bit up there too, so I was going up and like downtown San Francisco is like a lot of empty space, and it's like I think it's the same thing that's going on in New York, probably LA too.
You would say LA in terms of the real estate's it's not terribly crazy at this point.
It's pretty crazy, I think. But a lot of artists I know are kind of going back, like artists who are doing really well, who you would think face value, like they've made it, are like, yeah, I'm probably moving back into my like garage soon. They have like 1,000 square foot studio or like a 2,000 square foot studio, and it's like, yes, this isn't feasible anymore. Like it's just, I don't know. It's it's like the market and like how much because it obviously has gotten a lot more expensive. Like when I first moved to LA, it was so cheap. I I loved it. Like it was just easy. I never had to think if I wanted to like move. I wouldn't even think about where I was moving to. And I was younger too, but like I wouldn't think about where I was going until like a couple weeks ahead of time. 'Cause there's just so much space and it was so affordable and it was so easy to find stuff. And then like that really changed, I think, around 2012. And I mean, maybe that was just kind of everywhere, but like, we were always hearing about like New York and San Francisco being expensive, and LA kind of seemed a little bit outside of that. And then that really changed. And I think like the whole rest of the country probably caught up in a sense. But
Mm.
yeah, if I feel like that was sort of, for me, that was sort of like the first spotlight on LA. And that was like, do you know Pacific Standard Time?
No.
That's like something like maybe it's like a state orchestrated kind of like art spotlight on like California. And the first one was in 2012, I believe. It was like every institution, all the galleries, all the artists kind of got together. And it was sort of like a celebration of like LA art and like light and
It
space.
was
And
a
like,
show.
it was like a summer long where there's like shows in like every institutional space and galleries are involved and like artists are putting on things. I think they're doing it like every 5 years or
But
something.
specifically LA artists and LA movements.
But yeah, it's specifically California, I believe. So like
Mm,
LA obviously was
good.
like main hub of it. I think the next one's in 2030. So but it's really cool. And that was the first time that was for me, I'd been living out here for like 6 years and I was like, I didn't know if I wanted to stay. I was like thinking about moving to New York. And that was when I was first like LA is amazing. Like I love it out here. It's like such a great place to be an artist and there's so much going on, and it was like it really like everything just kind of came together and that also kind of felt like the first wave of like um tons of people moving here and things starting to get actually expensive and
You said
like
this was around 2012 or so?
yeah, that's
Yeah.
how I felt. Yeah.
There was around that time that I was considering moving to LA
Yeah, okay, there you
myself. Yeah, I had this
go. From New York.
from New York, from New York. Yeah, I
Yeah,
had this thought in my
everybody
mind.
did.
Like, yeah, exactly. It seems like the quality of life for artists and probably for everybody could potentially be quite high in terms of like the food's really good. There's
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of nature everywhere. You get the beach there. You're within striking distance of tons of national parks.
Yeah. You have like, the desert, you have like Mexico, you have like San Francisco, you have like the mountains, I surf.
Oh, you surf, yeah.
That's great. That's like my
Yeah,
thing.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, I would surf if I was out there. You've
Yeah.
got the sun, just the weather.
The weather's great.
We had
Yeah.
a brutal winter this past winter in New York,
I
and
know.
I
I
went
know.
on this cruise for my mom's 80th birthday, and I came back. It was Florida. It was like beautiful weather. It was just a few
Okay.
days, and we came back, and there was a huge blizzard that hit a day before I came back, and it was
Okay.
like apocalyptic, man. It got like in the negatives the day after the blizzard, so all the piles of snow had frozen. I had to shovel my car out with like a ice pick, I'm just like, oh God,
Yeah, I know.
what am I doing here? This is insane. Then again, my friend Doug, who I mentioned from LA, ran the space Big Pictures LA for a while. And he was saying that his theory was that the art's so strong in New York because people have, in
Got
LA, there's
distracted.
other stuff to do. Yeah, you can go outside, there's flowers, there's nature, and you don't have the same compulsion to make art or look at art.
I feel like I've had to fight that really hard and be like, well, I think in one sense, it's like oftentimes we have like 300 beautiful days a year. So it's like, you can kind of start to take it for granted and be like, I'm going to be in the studio all day and I know that these are just coming. It's like through the winter we have like beautiful weather and like, it's like you can't go out every day and just like sit in the park and go to the beach, But you have to fight that a little bit. It's like a beautiful like, the beautiful weather can slow you down from getting in the studio. And like, for me, I have a lot of friends who are like kind of how I got into surfing is I have like a lot of friends who are like really serious surfers, and I didn't start surfing till like maybe like 7 or 8 years ago. But it's like when there's a swell coming through, that's like another thing. Like when the waves are good, it's like really hard to like be in the studio because that doesn't happen very often. It's like it can be like months where there's like not any good waves, and
How big are the waves?
how big? I mean, it just depends. Right now, I think they're a little small. I'm actually hoping to surf tomorrow, but I think it's small.
To make it worth it for you, how big do they have to be? Like 4 feet or something, or
Oh yeah, something like that would be
something like
great.
that? Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's a
I mean,
good. That's a good.
yeah, I'll go out when it's really big too. Like
Ooh,
it could be like overhead.
oh,
Um,
scary.
yeah, I like to get scared a little bit when I'm out
Well,
there.
it's not just, I have a friend that out here who's obsessed with surfing. He goes to the Far Rockaways,
Oh no
which
way, that's great.
apparently it's really quite good. Actually, I went with him once. I surfed once. I almost
Oh
caught a
really?
wave. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's more, I think it's not really just, it's not the surfing necessarily. It is, but when you're out in the water, you're also grounding. You're getting the electromagnetic energy from the earth, and you're getting the sun and the light in your eyes and the being in
Mhm.
nature. So it's like the whole, and you're exercising. So you really have this, just
You have to
all
be
this
completely
stuff.
present while you're out there because it is a little bit of like it can be life or death. A lot, oftentimes it's not, but like it can get really harrowing and you can drown and there's like rocks and different things going on. And I'm not afraid to go out in pretty adverse situations. And yeah, you can definitely get injured, which is part of, I think, why I'm drawn to it. And I think also like just the fact that it's kind of a solo sport, I think like it works for a lot of artists who like to like work alone and like work on this thing alone. And you go out and you like face this thing, this like challenging thing every day. And it, like you said, it is beautiful. And you're like in the water and you're like, oh my God, this is incredible. And there's like dolphins and you can like see the mountains and the mist. And it's like it's very dependent on weather and like the time of day and wind and stuff. And it's like all these things are really grounding. I think that it's like kind of why I love it.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels between art, painting in particular, and surfing. And I think about mixing color. Again, I'm not a surfer. I surfed once and barely caught a wave, but almost caught a wave, I should say. I was so
Hey,
close,
great.
but
Yeah.
it was just beautiful being out there. And the perspective of the water is, I didn't expect that. I'm like, this is a whole different perspective. You're like above the water and you're not
Yeah.
fighting. I can see how there's this meditative quality to it. When you're mixing color, you go one way, it's not that way, you go the other way. And I
Yeah.
think of it in my mind like surfing. I don't know if you can speak to that.
Um, what like how would I relate painting to surfing? Like, um, hmm. I don't know, it's tough to think about, but like I feel like I had like a something I could have said, but it's not coming to me right now. I'll think of it in a little bit.
Is there a strong sense of community? Do you get a lot of studio visits? What's the social scene like?
Yeah, I'm also curious to see how it relates to New York, because like for me, I have to really work for the community here, and like I didn't go to grad school, and I think that was like one thing that kind of like I started without any community or any kind of built-in community, and I've had to kind of like really work for it. But I don't know, LA is so interesting. There's so many different like art communities, and it's so sprawling, and there's so many different like pockets, and I feel like I'm just constantly kind of like stumbling into like a whole new community, which is really cool. I'm sure New York is the same way, but like there's just like pockets of like different groups of artists everywhere, and you're like, I didn't even know like this whole crew existed, and they're like doing some like artist run space in their studio, and it's like this whole like scene. But I mean, I think the community is really great here, and I've got like I'm like really happy with my community, and I feel like I do have. It's really easy to just like stay in your studio and stay home in a way, which I feel like maybe is different from New York, where like you're kind of thrust out into the streets and you're like coming into contact with people like a little more often just because of like how you live there, and you're like a little more just like you're kind of forced to see people. Like we're like I can go from like my car, from like my studio to my car to like the grocery store and home, and like not really come in like that much contact with people if I don't want to. So yeah, I feel like I just have to work for it. And like something my wife's also an artist, and something we like talk about a lot is like trying to work for that community and like get more people over, and it's like it's just so easy not to. And I don't know how does that relate to New York?
It reminds me of something else that my friend Doug from LA said about New York versus LA. I think we were always talking about that because people in LA, I think people in New York too, but if you're an artist in LA, I think, or an artist anywhere, you're conscious of New York being
Hmm.
this, and I think it is the fulcrum of the machine in some ways, for better or worse, you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely.
But he was saying that most of, also sort of kind of what he said kind of echoes what you were saying about things in LA being kind of secret and being behind closed doors. You
Yeah,
know, that things in LA happen privately, where in New York it's all on the street. So if you want to
yeah,
meet somebody, you just go to their opening and they're right there. I've
yeah,
met a lot of people for this podcast just going to their openings or going to an opening where they happen to be there and just
yeah,
chatting. And people will talk to you here. It's people are very accessible and it's pretty small. I mean, there's the openings are pretty localized. So, I mean, you got Tribeca now, which is one of the
yeah.
major areas. Downtown, of course, has sort of migrated to Tribeca and then Chelsea, but there's only a few areas that are all pretty accessible, pretty easy to get to. The thing about New York is it's so small geographically. It's pretty easy to get studio visits, I think, and
Really.
because I think it's important to have more people looking at your work because it does change it, even for just just getting more activation on a consciousness level is one of the real benefits of being here.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that. I think like I've found I have to work pretty hard for studio visits, especially with like galleries and stuff. Like it's like years of networking. Finally get them to come in when you want them to, where you're like, okay, like it's popping off in the studio, like can you come? And it's like, I don't know, like people are busy and flaky and it's LA and it's like hard to get places and it's not like you just hop on the subway and it's like yeah, I got like three other studios right on your block that I need to hit too or whatever, it's like I don't know, it's hard.
Here too for galleries and things like
Okay.
that. I don't bother with galleries.
Mm.
If somebody's interested and they wanted to come by, I
Yeah,
would certainly not say no. But I think it's more important to have artists in your space and
totally.
have people that are able to no, but gallery, I mean, if you have gallerists that's interested and there's some very smart and very creative and interesting and interested people in the gallery space. There can be a kind of a commercial implication that I'm like wary of now because I don't want that might change how they're seeing your work. Okay, for example, I had somebody come by a few years ago from a gallery and they asked me about inventory. Inventory, are you out of your mind?
They're
Like,
widgets.
yeah, yeah, like, what do you think I'm making here? So it just like kind of made me turned off a little bit. And there was a period of time like 2016, 2017, even 2018, up until COVID, I was showing pretty consistently. And then I started getting more into plant medicines and ayahuasca and
Oh
self.
wow.
It's incredibly healthy if you have an
Yeah.
opportunity to.
I haven't done ayahuasca, but I've done other sort of like psychotropic, stuff.
Very
But I would love to
useful.
try it at some point.
Oh, you
Yeah.
should. Yeah. Yeah. It's extremely beneficial. At least for me, it was for a while. I stopped now because I had a case of diminishing returns, which
Hmm.
made me
Yeah.
think of Alan Watts saying, when you get the message, you hang up the phone.
Got it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
referring
you've got
to
the message.
psychedelics. I got the message. Yeah. You really got to hustle whatever you do to get those galleries in the
Yeah.
studio and to have shows and you're continually showing.
Yeah, I mean, I have a strong desire to like share the work with like outside of my studio. And I have a lot of like studio visits with artists and stuff too. And try to just keep that like I try to get a couple like a month or something, and I try to get to other people's studios as much as possible. And I find it really rewarding, really cool. And sometimes we don't even like, I don't know, sometimes you just don't even like talk about the work so much
Yeah.
and you're just like
Yeah.
talking about life and like the struggles. And it's like really great and like what you're reading and stuff, And
Yeah. Because it all feeds into it. That's really important.
totally. Yeah. But like yeah, like so like lately I've been trying to get like I feel the urge to like get some kind of exhibition. I haven't shown in LA in like since like 2020. And I'm just like, I really want to. And I really want to share the work and, you know, just share the work. And so I have been like hustling that way
That's
lately.
good. And
And
that's
yeah,
good. You make a good point, and this is something that one of my studio mates reminds me that, it's not just about the commercial aspect, but showing is also really about sharing the work.
yeah.
And even in
And
that,
like you said,
Josh,
like you go to openings and you meet the artist. And it's like a great place to like just get more ideas, and I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And even in that Josh Klein article, he talks about showing as a way to really test your work and to see it, it's like a peer review process, and that changes it, and I think it makes it more strong and healthy. And one of his arguments in that was that people aren't having they're not able to show like more experimental work if there's no commercial gain from the spaces just can't show something they won't sell.
One thing that I think is like really um could be exciting about what's happening with like the galleries kind of leaving LA right now and sort of like closing down and like a restructuring is before so many commercial galleries kind of like started really focusing on LA as a hub, it felt like there was so many more artist-run spaces and just kind of like people putting together like super experimental shows and like, rooftop shows and like houses, backyards. And I feel like part of that was the pandemic, like shut down a lot of the spaces and they just like didn't like maybe the people aged out of it or something. And like, like once things reopened, it was like it just hasn't felt the same to me, or maybe like I'm older and I'm just not quite as hip to it. But I'm hoping like it kind of gets back to that thing where it's like, the commercial aspect is like gone. And let's just make art and find spaces and find people who are willing to support it with like space and, people who want to come and like hang out and, be part of the energy of it all.
There's a freedom in that. I think there's a real way in which the culture that we're in, focusing on economics and obsession with materialism. I'm not saying that it's totally like material. I'm not saying materialism is bad. We're in a material culture. We're producing material goods, actual things, objects, so that it's a
Yeah.
part of it. But I think that it can really close down possibilities. And then how can you have new stuff, interesting work, and how can you push things if there's no place to go with it? What galleries are leaving, and what we talked earlier about Goodman closing down in LA.
Been left. Let me see. Like this is a little while ago, but the Shrine was out here and Sergeant's daughter were sharing a space and they left. Who else is closed down? Like some galleries have had to like downsize big time, and like rent out like half their spaces and do like stuff where they're like sharing spaces. Let me see. Who else is left?
So,
I
but
feel like
the
just a lot of the New York galleries who kind of flooded out here have like kind of realized that was a really poor timing or something.
so some of the capital gains have been erased.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, interesting. But
Yeah.
that could this like to your point, this could bring some interesting things. If the rent gets cheaper and there's more spaces open, it's like, hey, let's put on this crazy ass show that is going to be
Yeah.
just like nobody's going to buy a thing, and it's going to be insane. But we can just like get this space for a couple of weeks, whatever it is. Maybe more opportunities like that could arise.
Yeah, my wife and I actually we do like a kind of artist run space in our backyard too. It's called Driveway
Oh,
LA.
cool.
It's not we did two shows and then we had a baby and we had to take a break. So we are actually we have two shows planned for the summer and it's like in our driveway in our backyard and then we use like my outdoor studio too as part of it. But like
Awesome.
really what it is and like the two we've done so far, it's been like an artist and a musician kind of like paired together, and there'll be like a performance aspect, like a musical performance, because my wife's in the music world, and then like an art show, and we kind of try to pair people together. The two we have coming up are mostly just like visual um shows, but basically the idea is like it's like a one night, maybe like one night and like part of the next day kind of thing, and it's like a party for
Awesome.
art, and it's like art's being shown, but it's like it's just kind of about like getting everybody together. And that's what I love. I did that years ago too in my like old house I used to live in. And I never felt more community than like when I was kind of like hosting other people's work and kind of like I'm using the word like curating like lightly, like I'm involved and I'm like kind of putting it together, but like it's about bringing in an artist and like letting them do their thing. There's no sales, like we're not trying to like take 30% or something. If it, like we're just like you do your thing. We just want the community and to like host this thing and like make it happen. So
Letha Wilson and I. Do you know the artist?
yeah, I know the name.
She just had an awesome show at Grimm.
Oh cool.
I think it just closed recently. We did a mushroom show back in 2018. First the cactus show back in 2017. We were hiking a lot together out west, and we had this idea to put on a show. And we did the cactus show first. The next year we did the mushroom show, and then we did the mushroom show. Or she was not involved in the second iteration of the mushroom show, which is at a gallery called Sardine. But they were all
Okay.
just artists. I mean, again, same as you. I was like, I wouldn't even call myself a curator of those shows. I just brought people together, and I wasn't even that strict. Like people would find out about it and be like, "Oh, can I be in the show?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course." Like, why wouldn't you? Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Like
Like, you
everybody,
got a
it's
mushroom
just
painting?
yeah,
Yeah, bring
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it.
It's not a mushroom, well, whatever, close enough. Yeah, it's probably mushroom
Yeah.
related somehow.
Right.
Just but like the energy of it, I could tell the way like it boosted people and people loved to be a part of it, and it was a huge party, and it was really about this sense of community that it brought together, even for a moment,
Being part of like supporting other people, is like really fulfilling,
isn't it?
right?
It's
Like,
the best.
yeah,
Yeah, it's the best.
yeah.
It's like because it's not about you. There's so much pressure we put on ourselves. Oh, I gotta me, and that's like exhausting,
Mhm.
But if you just take a
Not
look,
healthy.
it's not healthy. No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not healthy. We're in a culture which is completely obsessed with the self, and
Yeah.
that's. I think deep down we know it's an illusion. There's not
Absolutely.
really a self.
Yeah. I think I would totally agree with that. Yeah. But here we are living in this world where
You
it
got to
seems like
navigate somehow.
self. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nobody
yeah.
that can
And
right.
you still have to like function in the world.
Pay the bills.
Pay
Yeah.
the bills and so forth. And if you have a family, how to take care of the family,
Yeah.
etc. I've been really looking around lately and trying to realize, trying to get past the illusion that people aren't your brothers or sisters.
I think for me, like having a child has also kind of like opened my eyes in a way where I'm like, I feel like they're like, I don't know, man. Like, you like everybody's got a different experience, but for me personally, I was like, maybe I had a little more of a feeling of like myself and others. And now that I like have like watched this like childbirth and like watching somebody grow, I'm like, oh, we all came from like the same thing. And there's no separation, it's like everybody, maybe not everybody, but like everybody's like a pure person who's been like socialized in some way, and like seeing that like happening is like, I don't know, it's eye-opening in a way.
Yeah, everybody was a baby and everybody had a mother.
Yeah, everybody came from a woman.
Everybody was a tiny little baby. It's,
Yeah.
it's hard to keep that perspective when you got somebody freaking out on the subway or somebody's like in your face in public for some reason, or like I was
Yeah.
walking up the stairs I was going to see some shows the other day, and this guy was having some sort of meltdown, but it wasn't personal. He was just freaking out, and I just happened to be there, so I'm just screaming at everybody that walked by, but
He
it's
got to you.
really,
Sure.
yeah, you got me. Consciousness being so permeable, you can't help but absorb whatever qualities are around you. So that's one thing that in New York, it's kind of a struggle for a lot of people. I think just the energy is so intense because it's so densely populated and you have all these people everywhere and their emotions will, at least to some degree, bleed into yours, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we pick up on like, everything that's going on with people around us, like we're kind of like pack, like herd animals in a sense where we like that relates to surfing too. Like I oftentimes will be like a pack of surfers together and everybody starts moving together. It's like somebody saw there's like a big set coming through and we need to like get outside and everybody just starts you like react to the people around you, you're like, oh, I feel like a real animal when I'm out there. And but I feel like it's the same way in the subway. It's like you're just reacting to like what everybody else is doing, unless everybody's like just sitting there on their phones or something. But like, that's an
Oh
energy too.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It is, truly is. And I think especially as artists, one of the prerequisites is a certain kind of sensitivity.
Yeah,
To make your paintings, you have to be sensitive of the place you're in, your experience of your being a body moving through that place.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I so like going back to your kind of question about like, I don't want this to turn into like a surfing podcast because I'm kind of wary of like, connecting myself. I don't know why there's like a little bit of like a negative connotation with like surfers and like surf art that needs to be like destroyed. But like, okay, I think you're asking me how like surfing kind of plays into the painting, and I was a little bit stumped. But it's like just reacting to what's happening in the moment, I think is a lot of what I'm doing while I'm painting or like making ceramics. And like, I'm like I'm creating a situation where I have to react to it. And it's like becomes like very intuitive, and you're like putting down color and seeing how that affects everything else in the painting, and then reacting to that in like real time. And like similar to surfing, you're kind of like you're like moving and like reacting to something that like you kind of can't control so much, I think. And like, with my paintings, I don't feel like completely in control. I feel like I'm like, I start from a place where like I'm starting to see how the photographic image could be like within the canvas. And then it's like a process of like kind of revealing that. And it often like changes into something else. And it's like you hear artists talk about like the artwork like reveals itself as you like work through it. And that's exactly how I feel. And like sometimes, I think it's going one way, and it's like that's when the painting, like if I'm like too focused on like it being something, the painting kind of starts to like not work, and I have to almost like destroy it and like start over, or like go to like totally change it. And yeah,
So there's a certain amount of letting
maybe that
go
relates to that.
that's necessary, right?
I think so. And I think like there's a fine line between like failure and success, and it's probably not even like black and white, it could be like just like not looking at the piece for a few days could like change everything, and like coming back to it,
That's one of the
because
best
I think
things
it's
you
like
can
your
do.
mental state too. Yeah, or even months, like I like to hide. Sometimes I'll be like working on a piece, and it like I'm not quite at the point where I'm going to destroy it because there's something that's working about it, but I can't see it. And I have to just put it away. And sometimes it goes away for like a year, and then it comes back out, and like suddenly I can like see something different in it. Or sometimes I pull it out and I'm like, there's nothing wrong with this, like it was just like my mental state at the time, and it just needs,
There's a real skill in knowing when to stop,
yeah.
even temporarily, just say I have to put this aside.
Yeah. I think I developed like a kind of a mantra or something like years ago where it's like you get to a point where nothing is jumping out at you. And like, it's like it's hard to know when to stop. But like for me, it's kind of like when nothing's bothering me that I feel like I need to change, I'll like put it away, hopefully.
Right, it's funny you mentioned that. I was just thinking I was painting earlier and thinking, okay, I think it's done because I don't want to change anything.
Yeah, there
If
you
you
go.
get to the point where it's not obviously wrong, then
Yeah,
you can put it
that's
aside.
exactly. Yeah. It's like it doesn't have to be, I don't know, like because I do believe that paintings can like they have a life force, and they can sort of like breathe over time, and like they change over time. So it's like I think stopping early is really important, you know?
There's a lot of skill in knowing when to stop. But somebody was talking about this, how little kids, they just do this masterpiece, but then they just keep going. They don't know when to stop.
Totally. Yeah. Or yeah, like it's great. I love it. Yeah, they have a real idea of what they want it to be, and you're like, where did you get that idea? It's so cool. And then
Is
they
your
like,
daughter drawing?
yeah. Oh yeah. I bring her around the studio and like
Cool.
lay like scrolls of paper out, and she just like I'm like her assistant, I'm like, she's like, blue. I'm like, oh yeah, blue. Okay, here you go. Like,
My niece has been making me the same painting over for the past like 4 or 5 years. She's about 11. Every year it gets more accurate but less creative. She's been doing a little
oh,
drawing. It's based on one of my paintings of this landscape.
oh no way. That's
And it's been
cool.
cool seeing her evolve
Uh,
in this way, but you see the way in which the mind becomes, they say that children have minds that explore, while adults have minds that exploit. So not necessarily exploit in a bad way, but just you have an objective. It's not really about exploration anymore. So I think you
yeah.
really have to fight to keep that sense of exploration as an adult, as an artist.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think that's what we're all kind of like striving for, is to like, I have like things I do in the studio. Like I think I mentioned I was in like metal bands when I was younger, and I was really into like being in mosh pits and stuff. And like like now I listen to like certain types of music, and it's like I like to like get really physically like charged in the studio like before I start working, to kind of get my body to a certain place. And I feel like that helps me just start moving through the painting, and like, reacting to things that I'm like seeing, and kind of like getting outside of my head a little bit. And I think that's like where like every artist wants to be, is like kind of like just reacting and not overthinking it, which is like kind of how children work.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's like
good.
not precious. Um
I think that relates back to your comment about surfing, where it's seems to be more a response or a reaction,
Hmm.
in the best way. And it seems also that you're feeling the experience. Like maybe you started painting by getting into your body and feeling into your
Yeah,
body, and then you feel into the paint. Like it's really about feeling, isn't it?
it's really about feeling. Yeah. And I think like one thing with surfing again is like there's like off days. There's like days you go out and you don't catch any waves and it can be really frustrating. And it's like the same thing in the studio. It's the same thing at like home. It's like it's kind of outside your control, you
You
know.
get
You can do a
skunked.
lot of things. You get skunked. It happens. Yeah, you know. I mean, uh yeah, I got skunked. I got skunked in the
Oh.
studio yesterday. It's outside of my control, you know. It's like
uh,
you can't beat yourself up. It's like there's all these other things happening, you know. Um,
yeah,
it's funny though, like I just listened to your podcast with Donna Nelson.
she is a Jedi master.
I didn't know her work. It's so good. But I think because you had referenced it in quite a few other podcasts, I was like, I gotta listen to this one. And it's such a great, like, I love hearing her talking about how she destroyed all the work from like,
A decade.
yeah, yeah. I've been talking to a lot of artists about that recently, just like destroying and slashing work, and how like necessary that is.
You got
Like,
to do it.
yeah.
Get
I'm
rid
at a
of
point
it.
like I destroyed a lot of work recently, and I'm at a point where I think I need to do it again. And I was like listening. I really like tuned into that part of the podcast because she was talking about you can't like ascend or whatever to the next like creative like output expansion without like letting go of the other of the stuff that's like kind of holding you back. And I'm feeling that right now in the studio where I have like a whole rack of like work I've been kind of hanging on to because it's like good, but I'm kind of like, what am I doing? And I'm like, yeah, I just need to like slash it.
That's really healthy. And the same.
Yeah,
I have a whole closet full of paintings that, and if you're holding on to those paintings, that means that you intend for them to be seen or shown, or you're
yeah,
still behind them. So it's
yeah,
not
right.
just right. I think maybe the move would be just to give them away, but not sign them and not take any ownership. So the material could be enjoyed or used or something. Because
Yeah,
I'm sure a lot of people out there would certainly enjoy the work and like to see it, but
yeah,
that's basically to me the same as destroying it without filling up a dumpster or the landfill or something like that.
yeah.
You might have to do that though if you need to purge it.
I like to like either, I reuse the stretchers or a lot of times I just paint over paintings and like that kind of becomes part of the
That's a good
work too,
solution.
where
Oh,
like
interesting. Yeah.
you can see that like history of what was there before. It's in a lot of my work. And you have to kind of look closely and you see like, the drawings and then like paintings have been like painted over and like different things happening and it becomes like a real layered thing that like kind of relates back to like place to me in a way where like I get really interested in places where you can see the history of like the
Hmm.
built landscape or like the way that the natural landscape's kind of like
Yeah.
interacting with it. And yeah, kind of like finding that like deconstruction of like how much do you show versus like how much are you trying to cover up, I think is really central to my work.
Yeah.
But
Are you using oil or acrylic?
I'm oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you
I
just paint over it. Do you gesso over it first and then paint over?
Well, I don't just over the oil because I don't think it would
Oh, right. Of course. You
stay.
couldn't. Yeah.
But I just go so like, if I do that, I go over it with like a oil coat. So usually I start with I got the raw canvas, I'll gesso that. Then I will start with like an acrylic base, like a base color. And then then I'll be like doing my oil painting. And then if it gets to a point where I'm like, I don't want this, I'll either like slash it or just paint over the whole thing. And
With oil paint.
with oil. Yeah, so then I have an oil base, which is like a totally different experience too, which is pretty cool. Like, I like working both ways. I like working oil on top of acrylic, and I like working oil on top of oil. And oftentimes with the oil on top of oil, then there's like a extra layer of like architecture you're kind of like fighting against in the painting. So with the ceramics, I refire them a lot too. So
After they're done, you want to
I'll fire.
rework it
Yeah, yeah. I'll like reglaze it and refire it like multiple times. And it's kind of like similar where like it's totally different process, but it's similar in a lot of ways where like finding when it's finished, it's like it's not a like it's not a set thing for me.
you probably heard the Picasso quote that a painting is never finished. You just stop working on it.
Yeah.
which
That's
is
true. Yeah.
it's kind of true. I mean, but then I guess it's finished when you say it's finished, so
Right.
that's the beautiful thing about art is that there's so much nuance embedded within not just the object, but the whole project, the thing, the process,
Yeah.
everything about it is nuanced. Why is it this big versus why is it big versus small? Why is it oil versus or acrylic? Is it an image or an object? Somewhere in between, is
Right.
it this or is it that? And there's so much, it always fits somewhere in between, I guess, two binaries, perhaps.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about it. And I think that's one of the reasons that it's so important that artists have a place in the culture because it keeps it interesting and it reminds people on a subconscious level that there is nuance and that it is because you can see
Yeah.
it's tangible nuance. It's real. It's not just an idea about nuance. It's
Yeah.
not, which those are important too. Philosophy is important as well, but it is actually showing you on a material level that things are not always what they seem.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm very into the idea of like, multiple realities kind of like being existing at the same time. And I think like for me, it's kind of how I play it back into like the site and the painting. It's like, the site where I first like took the photograph and then the painting. It's like those are both existing in the studio. It's like that's kind of how memory plays into it, but it's like there's two places. There's the studio where I like work on the painting, and there's a site where like I had the experience and the documentation. And it's like they're both existing. And sometimes there's like multiple like many different like places kind of involved in a painting. And I'm always like trying to look as much as I can, like, just like look at the sky and like see how like shadows are falling. I think I'm like really sensitive to that anyway. Um, like just kind of like light and shadow is like something I'm like very sensitive to. And like just the fact that like something that is actually like an absence of something can take up so much gravity and like that's like really interesting to me, like a shadow can be like the main part of your composition in a painting and like just like the dominant thing and it's like actually just like the absence of light. It's like almost like nothing. um but it's also cool because lately I've been like teaching my daughter about shadows and like just like this is how it works, that you move your hand and you can see it on the wall and that's a shadow. And it's like, look, there's a shadow of a tree here and like you can see our shadows and we're like gonna go into the shadow of the tree. And I'm like, this is so cool because it's like she's connecting to it and I'm it's like the main thing that I'm like interested in too. It's like light and shadow and kind of like color relationships and stuff.
Well, it's
Um,
amazing, isn't it? If you really
yeah.
think about it, it's wild. We're living in this world which, I mean, what is it? What is matter? What is that? I think they really don't know on the deepest level what we're actually composed of. They don't know how far down it goes.
We know nothing. It's like, crazy. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's crazy whenever you hear somebody who like thinks they got it figured out. You're like, man,
Yeah,
we don't
yeah, of course. And I used to be like that when I was younger, when I was in my 20s. I was
totally. Yeah.
an atheist. And I remember talking to these fundamentalist Christians one day, and I was arguing against the there's no God, of course. And they said there what? And
Yeah.
he was like, this is in Indiana when I was like
Yeah.
before I went to grad school.
Well, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Bible Belt, he was an older guy. And he goes, well, all right, then, why is there wind? And I was like, what do you mean, why is there wind? If Of course, it's some sort of this and this. But then, like on a deeper level, why is there wind?
Pretty hard to explain that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, or is it actually happening or is it like happening in our mind or something? It's like it
Right.
could go
Right.
as deep as you want to there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It goes deep as you want. And I think that's the beautiful thing about having an art practice
Yeah.
because you can consider these things and it's really not just making paintings or sculptures or whatever you're doing. It's whether you know it or not, you're weaving some philosophy into it.
Yeah. I think it's like for me, it's like tapping into the sublime, and like whatever the sublime is, it's like could be, a greater energy, like a spiritual thing, or like a natural energy. But it's like, we're all feeling it, we're all connected to it, and like I get overwhelmed by it and like feel like this crazy like preciousness and like gratitude for like being able to experience these little things that are happening that I find so beautiful and I find like so much poetry and just like looking around and I want to like bring that into my work and the part of that's like trying to just like moralize like the nostalgia I feel for like the moment.
And that's communicated and that's absorbed by the person who looks at the painting.
Yeah. To pivot a little bit, the other thing I thought was interesting about the Donna Nelson interview was her talking about losing her eyesight. And I I just read this like really great, like kind of newish Monet biography that came out a couple years ago. And just realizing like so many painters have had like eyesight like issues, and like Monet like kind of was like going blind at the end. He was like working off of like memory of like what the colors, like the color, the oils were and stuff. And like, and like his late paintings are so crazy good. Like,
This would
I
be
don't know.
like the water lilies.
Yeah, have you seen those in person?
Oh, they're amazing. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Yeah.
They got a great, they have a bunch at MoMA in that room.
Yeah. But, yeah. I got lucky and got to see I was in Paris while the Joan Mitchell Monet like dual retrospective was going on at the Louis Vuitton Foundation. It was like I didn't expect to spend like 8 hours there, but I couldn't leave. Like I didn't know how much I love Monet until that, and like just his way of like actually like capturing the like energy between the object and the viewer, like almost like the air,
It's
it's
amazing.
like
It's
palpable.
amazing.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah. Um, but then like finding out like he's going blind and like he kind of was like having like eyesight issues like his whole life and like freaking out about it and stuff. And like hearing like Donna Nelson's also having like issues with like sight and stuff. And it's like there's so many like a lot of the impressionists all like were like either like colorblind or like different things were happening. And it's like didn't seem their work and the way they like were maybe like fighting against that in their work or like using it or
Or
something.
maybe they're developing other senses.
Yeah,
Maybe they're
maybe.
feeling it more than seeing it.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, I have some like eyesight issues too. So like I was like I technically I think I'm like a little bit colorblind. And it's not like I can't see certain colors, but they just like they register like a little differently.
Interesting. But
Or
your
something.
paintings are so much about color.
Yeah, and like it's not like I'm not seeing those colors, but like it's just like a little slightly different for me, I think. And so it's like
Interesting. Yeah.
I think it is interesting. I'm like I've always been kind of like timid to like share that because I'm like is it like I don't know, does it make me like a like an imposter or something? Or is it like interesting? Or like, it's my experience. But like I think like hearing like other artists like and how they're like dealing with that and stuff too. And like I've always kind of noticed it. Like I think I had to learn how to communicate color like with people around me because I was like seeing it a little differently. So like I have like a learned sense of like color and how to like do that. But I think it definitely like plays into my work because like color is like so central. And the way I'm seeing it is like slightly like off kilter or something.
It could be a benefit.
Maybe.
Like Donna was saying, that her gallerist thought that she was doing her best work yet as her eyesight decreased.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like I'm interested to see like will my eyesight like decrease also and like what will that do? Like I don't think I'll ever stop working.
No,
Like
it could be really interesting what
yeah,
happens,
it's like I don't know. There's not really like uh, it's like I feel like everybody's kind of like like finding things to like work against. So it's like that is something that also could be interesting to like work against. Like, it's like another like, hurdle you got to get over. And it's like a problem in the work, or something. And like for me, I think like I also use a lot of these like really intense colors like oranges and reds and pinks and stuff. And I think it's like for me, it's kind of a way to like make sense of it and like find a way to like because these colors are like really intense for me. And I think I'm trying to find a way. It's like a problem I've posed to try to find a way to like find this like poetry or like subtle beauty using these things that are like jarring to me. So yeah, I don't know.
It seems like that's important. To your point, it does seem like a lot of the problems we create, a lot of our issues, I should say, could be either seen as problems or opportunities.
Yeah, totally. And I think that like, you know, I'm just thinking about the conversation we've had about like having a job, on top of being like a full-time artist. And it's like looking at that as an opportunity rather than like a failure or something. It's like it's just like a mindset in general of like taking what comes to you and like working with it.
I was recently thinking about my grandfather. My mom grew up on a farm in Indiana, and he was
Mm.
like the 10th generation of farmer of the same land. He died in the same room that he was born in
Oh,
and all this stuff. He lived to be like 90
wow.
something, very hardy Midwestern stock. He was always very stoic when I was growing up as a kid, but then he kind of got a bit emotionless. He was about, getting ready to pass the last few years.
Yeah.
And we were outside working in the barn. There was a bunch of hay that needed to be moved or something like that. He almost broke down or did break down a little bit, saying that he wished he was healthy enough to work like that.
Oh, yeah. Totally. Yeah.
He'd give anything to be able to work.
It's crazy. I mean, like I was kind of like reconnected with like a kind of like long lost uncle recently, and my this part of it's because my grandmother's like aging, and she like moved to be closer to him, and she's like turning 100 this year. It's crazy, but
Wow.
I was talking to him about like our family history and stuff because I don't have a lot of connection to it, and he was like, a lot of like for generations, like, I was like talking about like what did people do when they like, like what did your grandparents do like when they retired or whatever? And he's like, they moved up to northern Michigan and like fished for a year and then they died. Like, and it's like they kind of like lost their like purpose or something, And it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's like to think about that. I think like we're lucky as artists where, we're never gonna have to stop. Like we're never like I never plan on stopping,
What
I'm
else did you
like,
do?
yeah, I hope to just get deeper and deeper into
Of
it.
course. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Keep
I don't
going.
want to stop. Like, there's no
No,
retirement plan here.
no,
Yeah.
why? No, definitely not. Yeah. And I have some quite close friends in the city that are in their 80s. They're still painting, of
Well,
course.
yeah.
One person, Paul Mogensen, who was on the podcast, I want to say he's definitely over 80 now.
Okay.
Still making great work. He actually had a
Cool.
show at Bloom out in LA not too long ago, which are they
At Blum,
closed?
or
Yeah,
they
Blum
just
at
closed. Yeah.
Blum not too long ago.
That's
They
another
just closed.
gallery, a big powerhouse gallery that shut down. Wow.
Yeah, man, it's changing before our eyes. Again, you could see it as a problem or an opportunity. Maybe there's an opportunity to have more artist-run spaces and more pop-up shows and
Yeah.
same thing in New York. It could be somehow converted into opportunities for younger artists. And it's hard. Like
Yeah.
I guess I feel very lucky that when I came to New York back in 2013, there's still a lot of opportunities for jobs. I think it's harder
Yeah.
now to
Yeah.
get good work, and it's also harder to find studio space. I've been lucky with this live work situation here.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you find a way. I think similar to you, I came out to New York when I think I was 29 or something. I was pretty young, and I didn't know anybody. I just jumped into a job and then made connections through that. And I think
Yeah.
you can still do that. I hope.
Hopefully. Yeah. I think you can. I mean, I don't know. I don't live in New York, but I think in LA you can. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, actually, when Blum closed, I, as an artist who's not like doesn't work with them, like I felt like this is great. This is like the turning of the guard or something. Like they've been like the staple gallery in LA for so long. It's like the precedent. It's like with them out of the picture, it kind of opens up a lot of opportunity for other people to
Mhm.
kind of come in and like it's also interesting. Like a lot of these like really high level artists are now showing in like because there's not as many big time
Oh,
spaces.
lesser, like not quite as big spaces after that.
So like
So
they're
their
showing like
closing was a big deal.
it's a big deal. And the artists, some of the artists work with them, they didn't have any warning
I
either.
feel bad for my friend Peter showed there, who was represented by them, and he was also showing it Chime and Reed, and they closed, and I'm just like, oh man, damn, he's such a
That's the
red.
thing. It's like, if you put everything on your like art career success, like it's just there's so many variables that you can't like you like both your galleries could close within a year and you're just like, where are you? Like what are you doing? Like it's like, I don't know. It's tough.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You're saying it sort of changed the landscape of galleries in LA, and did you feel like more opportunities were opening up for artists to show at other spaces, or
Well, I don't know. Maybe the competition has like gone up a little bit or
because there's
something.
less spaces?
Less spaces, more of the like high level artists are like, looking for space. But also I think there's like an opening in the gallery, like exhibition, like space where like there's a big hole now that needs to be filled. And like I think new people are going to come in with like new energy and like,
I hope there's a paradigm shift. And I think in the culture, it's a reflection, it both feeds into the culture and is a reflection of the culture, the art world, I
yeah,
think. Just in the way these mega galleries are kind of like big corporations, they
yeah,
dominate, and you have a very, very small group of artists that shows and sells work.
Yeah.
Compared to the art that's being made and the great art that's being made, it's a tiny fraction. And you have these few galleries, which are the gatekeepers. They're establishing the taste, and they're deciding what gets shown and what's good, and so forth. But and a lot of that's great stuff. There's no doubt, but it has to be exclusive because you have this false sense of scarcity. The same thing in the economy at large.
I know what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, things are changing. I think they have to change, and like maybe overall, like maybe on a really deeper, like political level, if they don't change, like we're doomed or something. But
I think things are slowly changing. Things that even 10, 20 years ago would have been normal aren't normal anymore in terms of how
mhm,
people are treated, and
totally.
not
Great.
everywhere, but right.
Yeah.
Even like I don't know if you remember growing up, some of the words that were used aren't used now and things like that. In reading, I was reading like Robert Heinlein or something. This is golden age science fiction, and it was
Yeah.
just almost I couldn't even read it. It was so dated in terms of the lead character was clearly misogynist, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
what? Like, but at
That's
the
just
time,
acceptable back then, like not that
it,
long ago. Yeah.
not that long ago. That's really
Yeah.
quite recently. A lot of so things are changing, but I think it's hard to see in real time. So my hope
Yeah.
is that art is that there's more of a sense of community, more of a sense of togetherness and
Yeah.
collaboration in the way that you described earlier, not like we're working on the same painting at the same time, but we're working on our projects and helping each other on a consciousness level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like we were kind of talking about like galleries versus like, artists coming in and like I think in LA, I don't know what it is in New York, but like a lot of the gallerists are actually like artists on some level too, or like they had some sort of an artist practice at one point. And so like it is cool to get them in and like for me, I'm like they are so they're seeing so much art that is like interesting to like get their opinion and stuff. And like I'm very guarded with like what kind of information I take in a studio visit. And like I try to be very careful like how I let it affect me, especially with like a gallery. But like I had a director from a gallery over recently, and we were talking about like, this really big canvas, and I have like another one, and he made a suggestion on like, what might be an interesting thing like out of my work to like explore on a bigger scale. And I was like, that is actually really interesting, and I hadn't thought about that. I had like a whole different idea, and like I'm probably gonna try it because I'm like trying to be open to like whatever, you know collaboration I can get, I think, in a way. And like, it's like who cares where the idea comes from? If it's my daughter and she's like, I like this, I don't like this. Like maybe that I'm like, that's like where the light bulb comes on or something. Like I don't know. It's like, yeah, it could be anybody.
That is just precious to get people in the studio at many different levels. There was a dude, he was here to fix our lock. No,
Yeah.
he came in and he just like he was just astounded by the paintings in in the studio, and
So great. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that was a cool visit. Like I'm glad that they're accessible on that level, and then you can have
Yeah.
somebody that's extremely knowledgeable about the art world come in and say something. They're coming at it from a different perspective. So I think it's great to have the diversity of perspectives, or to have a child look at it and just, oh, I like the
Wild is
color
really
here.
cool. Yeah.
All
You get a kid,
ages.
you get a kid like responding to it. You're like, I feel like you kind of know you're like, dude, it's like got some sort of baseline like energy or something.
That's real good.
Yeah, I think that like, yeah, like you were saying, like it could be doesn't have to be like an art world professional or like somebody who's like, got a certificate.
But
Like
it
it could
could
be like
be.
could be, absolutely. And like yeah, I don't know. It's just like great to get any opinion and every opinion. Like, yeah.
Just to have the consideration to have because there's so much stuff out there, and if you can get somebody also I find that if you can get somebody to look at one of your paintings for longer than like a minute, then
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
successful
it's
on some
awesome.
level. Yeah,
Yeah.
that we have the attention span of a goldfish these days.
I think I read somewhere it's like the average person looks at a painting in a gallery for like 7 seconds or something.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think 30 seconds is actually a victory in that, now more like it's decreasing over time.
absolutely.
um
Yeah,
well,
screen time and everything.
yeah, screen time, exactly. Nick, it's been such a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is great. And I think that this is also a really cool community building thing that you're doing and like, putting this out there in the world and like artists' ideas and these conversations. It's like great.
Yes, and now you're part of the community.
Thank you so much. I'm
I,
flattered.
pre- I appreciate your thoughts and for listening to the podcast, and everything. Before we go, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so. Yeah,
Thank you again.
great talking to you.